Hurricane season starts next week, and while we all hope it will be a long time before the next major storm hits Southwest Florida, now can also be a very good time to get really familiar with your insurance coverage in case a hurricane does hit. Jackie Calloway with our Scripps station WFTS in Tampa breaks down what is typically covered and where your policy might fall short.
We have a lot of fence damage and roof damage.
Hurricane Ian tore up Sarah Ohms Farrington's fence and roof.
And we had leaks on several parts of our house, like in my daughter's bedroom.
Like most homeowners, the Riverview family figured insurance covered the damage minus their hurricane deductible.
We got the initial okay, we'll give you $4,000 to fix the roof and $1,000 to fix the fence.
It was only after the storm that Sarah realized the limits on her policy would force her family to pay out of pocket for thousands of dollars in repairs.
And when we look at their homeowner's policy, we oftentimes find they need more coverage.
There's no adding onto your insurance coverage after a named storm poses an imminent threat.
I was returning her call.
Which is why Michelle Moser, owner of South Shore Insurance Professionals, advises homeowners review their coverage limits annually.
They want to kind of dig into what those coverages mean and make sure that they have enough.
All of your property coverage, including the hurricane and non-hurricane deductibles, are laid out in your declaration page.
It shows you your dwelling coverage.
Dwelling coverage is the maximum your policy will pay if your home is destroyed.
And then down here, we see personal property replacement cost.
And personal property covers everything that you would take out of the house if you moved. Loss of use covers your rent if you need to move out while your home is being repaired. Most outside structures like fences and sheds are covered, but some carriers do not insure screen enclosures against storm damage. In Sarah's case, she simply didn't have enough coverage for her outside structures.
I actually had to go get a loan, get our roof done, get our fence done.
Now she's sharing the hard lessons learned about property insurance.
For any other homeowners, what would you say to them regarding their policy?
Make sure that you read what's on your policy because, I, being a new homeowner, we didn't really do that.
Also, this is coming up starting this weekend on Saturday, Florida's disaster preparedness sales tax holiday. A time to pick up some of those supplies you might need. A generator, as you could save 6.5%. Other tax-free items and categories include radios, flashlights, batteries, tarps, those essentials to be truly ready. Now, this goes for 2 weeks from May the 27th through June the 9th. And do read the fine print on some of those as well because there are price caps for some of those items as well. So definitely be aware of that as you get into it.
But it's definitely wise to prepare now, of course, before hurricane season begins. But overall, things nice and quiet, exactly what we like to talk about here in the tropics. So here we are looking live from the Atlantic through the Caribbean into the Gulf of Mexico. Of course, this is a graphic that you are going to be seeing a lot of starting on June 1st. But since we are talking about the latest on the hurricane season, thankfully, nothing to report as of now. Things nice and quiet, exactly what we like to see. Meanwhile, outside of our studios, as we look live in the distance, you will be seeing that sky illuminate from some of those storms out there. Take a look at some of that lightning high in the clouds and all of that from some lingering storms, but they are far, far away. So we continue to monitor storms up toward our north, storms over on the East Coast, and honestly, I think that storm we were just watching was all the way over toward Fort Lauderdale. Of course, the beauty of having a relatively flat landscape here, but for the most part, those showers continue to die down. This little shower right here over Suncoast Estates, parts of North Fort Myers continuing to die out, not producing any lightning. Up here in DeSoto County, we are monitoring some of this heavier rain now entering northwestern DeSoto County. If it holds itself together, Arcadia, you will be hit by that particular round of wet weather. But again, most of it this evening at this point staying on the East Coast and away from us. Here are your weather headlines each and every afternoon. Stay weather aware. We're going to be dealing with active weather, heavy downpours, frequent lightning, gusty winds each afternoon, Wednesday, Thursday into Friday. Then over the weekend, your weather pattern will shift. It'll become a bit drier as a ridge of high pressure builds in and kind of dries things out, at least temporarily. So over the weekend, you'll notice far fewer rain areas, especially Sunday and into Monday. Monday being Memorial Day. At this point, I am expecting a mainly dry radar, just a 10% rain chance and some hot temperatures. Take a closer look. So the next several afternoons will feature rain in the likely ranges, 60%, dropping back those rain chances into the isolated range by Saturday afternoon. And then for your Sunday, just a 20% rain chance in the mix, and again, dropping even more so by Memorial Day. Heading into tomorrow morning, it'll be a quiet start, but there will be some areas of haze and potentially some patchy fog just because of how moist it is outside. We are dealing with pretty high dew points at this point, so just something to keep in mind for tomorrow morning. Otherwise, after 2 p.m., keep your eye to the sky for developing showers and storms. They'll fire at first close to 41 and 75. Then heading into the afternoon and evening, most of the action will stay farther inland. But for example, right here around 8 o'clock, could see a couple of showers that work their way back toward the coast with a bit of a wind shift. So we'll certainly be monitoring that closely. So bottom line, each and every afternoon, just stay vigilant. If you can hear that thunder, you want to make sure you head inside. For tonight, though, overall quiet conditions. Partly cloudy, patchy fog will drop down to 72 degrees up to 91. It's going to be feeling more like 98. However, because of that humidity, so keep that in mind for the next couple of days. Then over the weekend, we'll pull back those rain chances. Sunday, mostly sunny, mainly dry. Same story for your Memorial Day.
Thank you, Katie. A new warning out from the Surgeon General about the impact social media can have on children. So many of us who are parents, especially with teens, worry about this all the time. What a mental health expert says that we all can do. That's ahead. A new warning out tonight from the Surgeon General saying that social media carries a profound risk of harm to children and their mental health. Eric Waxler with our Scripps station WFTS in Tampa talked with one expert on what parents and caregivers should really focus on.
95% of teens use social media and 40% of kids 8 to 12 years old. And because of that, the United States Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, says there needs to be more safeguards, transparency, and regulations Dr. Jennifer Katzenstein is co-director of the Center for Behavioral Health at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. She says the Surgeon General's advisory should get much needed attention on the risks children are facing.
It allows our policymakers and our legislators the opportunity to take these factors into account when they are presented with laws or making decisions surrounding social media use.
While the Surgeon General says social media has its benefits, it does leave children vulnerable at a time when their brains are developing. Studies found social media use is linked to anxiety and depression, often caused by cyberbullying. Dr. Katzenstein recommends children be limited to less than 2 hours a day of non-educational use on devices. She also says parents should be aware of every app on their kids' phones.
It might be some great opportunities to spend quality time together practicing those apps, but there are apps out there that disguise themselves to hide other things. So you want to know how every app works.
And Dr. Darren Sutton, speaking on GMA Tuesday morning, agrees.
And talking to your kids about the permanence of what they post, then of course, I agree with Dr. Murthy in the Surgeon General office. Children under the age of 14 should not be actively participating in social media.
She also says to follow your child on every social media app they use. Some studies compare the impact of using social media to substance use or gambling addiction, and the Surgeon General says more research needs to be done. Parents can create a family media plan to include ways to track what kids are up to.
The words that our kids are using, the times of day that they're using their devices, so that you can track that.
Some of those resources can be found at healthychildren.org.
Still to come on Fox 4 News at 10, more groups are issuing travel advisories for Florida visitors and the new laws that they claim create a hostile environment and how Republicans, even in the Senate, are pushing back. Plus, a scam involving at-home COVID-19 tests has made its way to Southwest Florida. The test ended up on one man's porch in Cape Coral just weeks ago with a high price tag. More advocacy groups are issuing travel advisories tonight for anyone considering a visit to Florida.
It is clear that people, that communities, that groups are being targeted.
The policies these groups say they're most concerned about and how Republican leaders statewide are now pushing back. As Fox 4 News at 10 continues.
Live from Southwest Florida, this is Fox 4 News at 10.
The nation's largest gay rights group has issued a travel advisory for Florida over what newly passed laws that they claim could pose a risk to minorities, immigrants, and also gay travelers. The Human Rights Campaign calls it not a boycott, but rather a recommendation against visiting Florida, and even to relocate for people who live in the state. The group is citing specific policies like the recently expanded parental rights and education law, some refer to this as Don't Say Gay, the 6-week abortion ban, and the permitless carry measure. And the idea here from these groups is to try to impact Florida tourism. As according to recent data, visitors spent more than $98 billion in Florida in 2019 by itself. This comes after the NAACP issued a travel advisory over the weekend for similar reasons. Matt Cesny with our Scripps station WPTV in West Palm Beach takes a deeper look at the issue behind the advisory.
Hostility, not hospitality. That's the message from the NAACP about visitors to the state of Florida. And it all comes as the governor is about to jump into a national spotlight and the state is setting records for visitors.
It is clear that people, that communities, that groups are being targeted. Among those are people who are part of the Black community.
NAACP Chairman Leon Russell spoke by Zoom from the Tampa area about the travel advisory now out on the Sunshine State. The organization citing restrictions on teaching African American history in Florida and a blatant war against diversity and inclusion.
Because of the cruelty inherent in some of these public policies, we are saying to people, you do need to be aware of your safety.
Last Wednesday, a similar warning about Florida travel came from a leading Latino organization. In response, a DeSantis advisor joked on Twitter the travel bans will free up more dinner reservations. The governor, also on Twitter, bragged that Florida is setting records for tourists, over 37 million in the first quarter of this year.
Diversity, equity, inclusion is the opposite of opportunity. It's picking winners and losers.
Republicans, like State Representative Rick Roth, defend the governor's agenda.
We pass laws to keep them from teaching diversity and equity. Inclusion we're okay with. We like diversity of personality, diversity of ethnicity, and we also like diversity of idea.
Just for clarification, the NAACP is not calling for a boycott. They say they just want visitors to be aware when coming to the state of Florida, and if possible, they say, visit places where they may be more welcome than others.
Also, U.S. Senator Rick Scott responding to the travel advisories by issuing a travel advisory of his own. He issued a statement saying the advisory is for, quote, socialists visiting Florida, warning the state is openly hostile to socialists, communists, and their enablers. An Orlando restaurant that often hosts drag shows filed a federal lawsuit against the state of Florida and Governor Ron DeSantis just days after the governor signed a bill that targets drag shows. The owner of Hamburger Mary's Orlando claims the state is depriving the business of its First Amendment rights of free expression. The restaurant is now calling on the federal court to temporarily stop the law from taking effect as the case moves ahead. The suit claims the new state law is forcing it to ban children from all shows at the restaurant, and this is leading to 20% fewer customers on its Sunday performances that the restaurant claims are family-friendly. The COVID-19 public health emergency is over, but that has not stopped scammers from defrauding the federal government, and the scam is even showing up on the front porch of some seniors here in Southwest Florida. The Department of Health and Human Services says scammers are getting hold of your Medicare information and using this to send you an at-home COVID-19 test, so watch for this. And the tests can rack up about $100 each, the cost of a test each time they send you one. So one older person from Cape Coral telling Fox 4 he's had several COVID tests delivered to his house right before the public health emergency ended, but he claims he never ordered them.
All of these claims have been filed since April 28th. So the companies that are doing this knew, whoop, the golden goose is leaving town, so they did what they needed to do to get the orders into Medicaid, get the claims filed, and ship these things out.
And you saw the billing there, $96. That's been the going rate for many of these. The Office of the Inspector General and the Department of Health and Human Services sent out a fraud alert way back in February, urging people to report these types of COVID-related scams. Meanwhile, Medicare says it has tried to fight this type of fraud by limiting the number of tests that can get sent out. The execution of a man convicted of 2 killings in 1984 in South Florida is now on hold. Governor Ron DeSantis issued the executive order yesterday to delay the execution of Dwayne Owen until after 3 psychiatrists look into his mental condition. Owen was scheduled to die by lethal injection on June the 15th, but his lawyers claim a recent evaluation of Owen meets the criteria for insanity. A jury convicted him of killing a 14-year-old girl and also a mother of 2 in Palm Beach County nearly 40 years ago. The trial for former President Trump's criminal indictment in New York is now set for March 25th during next year's presidential primary season. A judge scheduled the trial during a hearing today where Trump appeared virtually through a video feed. The judge also laid out what the former president can and cannot say publicly about the case. Last month, Trump pleaded not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records to hide deals made with 2 different women to try to keep them quiet about any allegations of affairs during the 2016 presidential campaign. The judge has already signed off on a protective order which bans Trump's defense team from sharing or posting any evidence prosecutors give them on social media without the approval of the court. President Biden and Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy are still far from a deal to avoid defaulting on the nation's debt ceiling by early June, but both sides called the meeting yesterday at the White House productive. Our Joe St. George takes a deeper look at why getting a deal between these 2 leaders is only the first step.
Well, the state of debt limit negotiations seem to change by the hour, but what isn't changing is how a debt limit bill would have to get through Congress. In the House, 218 votes are needed. In the Senate, 60 votes are needed to avoid the filibuster. The most likely scenario here is that a deal cut by President Biden and Speaker McCarthy generates enough Republican and Democrat support to get through both chambers. Again, if the 2 men are able to strike a deal. Notice I didn't say unanimous support. That's because it's very likely that some progressive Democrats vote ultimately against this bill if new things like work requirements are added. That's what many conservatives want, work requirements for some low-income assistance programs like SNAP. Meanwhile, there's a number of conservatives here on Capitol Hill who may vote no because they don't think the budget is being cut enough. This delicate dance to come up with the right number of Democrats and Republicans will have to also go through a rule put in place this year by Republicans in the House that legislation can't be voted on unless it's been released for at least 72 hours. And Speaker McCarthy has said he will not waive that rule. That matters because Secretary of the Treasury Janet Yellen continues to advise Congress that the country could default as early as June 1st unless Congress acts. Although Goldman Sachs has advised their investors that a true default could occur a bit later, perhaps June 8th or 9th, so there may be some wiggle room. Whenever a default would happen, the Treasury would have to start prioritizing what gets paid and what doesn't. That could impact everything from Social Security checks to Medicare to paychecks for the military and federal workers. Now, we were curious, can history teach us anything about what's going on behind closed doors? We spoke with Neil Bradley, who worked for the House Majority Leader back in 2011. That was the last time there was a major debt limit fight in this country. He gave us a sense of what lawmakers are actually thinking during made-for-TV photo ops like this.
They're thinking about what's going to happen in the real meeting. But everyone else is thinking about, okay, what are we going to do? What's our strategy when the cameras leave the room?
When you were working for the Majority Leader back in 2011, would he say one thing in public and then go behind closed doors, shut the door, and say something totally different?
I don't know that people would say something totally different, but the tone would certainly change. You know, there is a period in negotiations where publicly you're sticking to your talking points, right? And you're not going to negotiate in public.
Joe St. George, Scripps News, Washington.
And despite some of the financial uncertainty right now in the U.S., travel experts say to be ready for packed airports and busy roads and highways for the summer travel season. Some of the projections out of AAA, 64% of Americans will be traveling this summer. It's up 2% from last year. Some might even bring their dogs to the airport, like you see. Travel experts say we'll see record-breaking travel numbers for the upcoming Memorial Day weekend. As a whole, they're projecting more than 42 million Americans will travel this year. That's up from about 40 million Americans last year.
83% of Floridians will travel this year, and about half of them are planning to take a summer trip. That is more than last year, and about a quarter of summer travelers have finalized their summer travel plans.
But even with that, most Americans do not have a free and clear mind about traveling. 77% say that they're worried because of last year's luggage issues and also all those cancellations. But the federal government has a plan to address some of those transportation issues. As Secretary Pete Buttigieg says, there's a shortage, though, of about 3,000 air traffic controllers, and that could impact air travel in the summer. So that's why he's pushing to hire more people for the jobs.
It's a concern, and it's part of what motivates us right now to be putting so much emphasis on the recruiting, the hiring, and the training. We need to make sure that we have the workforce that's ready to have more of a cushion.
Now, if you're hearing this asking, we hope that the people they hire are qualified. The Secretary says the FAA will not sacrifice safety to ensure that planes take off on time. And he also points the blame at airlines for causing more delays than a traffic control shortage. And drivers near Orlando had to watch out today because of this. A small airplane made an emergency landing, at least in the median of a road. This happened in the Christmas area of Orange County. No injuries reported from the landing, but the plane did block traffic. Firefighters, of course, notified the FAA of the situation. Still ahead, a look at why Florida is considered the shark bite capital of the world, but how one man survived an attack in Monroe County in the Keys. This week, of course, National Boat Safety Week. What you can do to ensure that you stay safe on the water as you head out for the Memorial Day weekend.
And dealing with heat indices, feeling more like the mid-90s again tomorrow. It's going to be a great day for the water, but then those storms could chase you indoors. We'll have a closer look at that timing for you next.
When we all go to the beach and we're all in the water, don't all of us at least think about it, at least watch for a shark? And so far, there have been 3 shark attacks reported just in Monroe County alone. That's according to the Sheriff's Office in the Keys. Sophia Hernandez speaks to one survivor about his recent encounter with a shark.
20-year-old Kevin Blanco is an avid fisherman who's been fishing for years, as you can see here. Last Thursday, he, along with 2 friends, went to a regular spearfishing spot like any other summer day.
I saw a dream fish of mine, so I shot the fish, and the fish got tangled all up in the rocks. And I came to the surface and I told my buddies, hey, this fish is stuck. We need to get it out as quickly as possible.
Knowing the blood could attract a shark, Blanco used the buddy system with friends to go 70 feet deep to try and retrieve the fish when the unthinkable happened.
When I let go of the rock to come back up to the surface, the shark just blindsided me, bit me in the leg twice, my left outer leg.
What's believed to be a bull shark, leaving Blanco injured and without air. His friends came to the rescue, helping him swim to the surface, get on the boat, and as one called 911, the other made a tourniquet that helped save Blanco's life.
Without him, I mean, I don't know, I can't. It would have been bad.
And less than 48 hours after Blanco's attack, deputies say a 35-year-old in Summerland Key was also attacked after a shark that was reportedly out of the water and on a fishing dock bit him in the foot. One expert says it's hard to tell if these events mean they are becoming more frequent.
You can't say just because we've had 3 bites this month that means this is an unusual event. It could just be, unlucky for that particular, for whatever reason.
Yanis Papastamatiu, an associate professor at Florida International University, says it's hard to determine the driving force behind these shark encounters, but emphasizes sharks are in South Florida waters year-round. He says if you are in the water, it's important to be vigilant, be in a group, and if you see a shark, get out of the water.
These are spectacular animals, and I realize not everybody may like them, not everybody appreciates them, but the fact is they have a very important role, and in most places, they have more to fear from us than vice versa. We are starting to see perhaps evidence of some of the shark population coming back up in Florida, but that's a good thing. Sharks in the waters is a sign of a healthy ocean.
Those like Blanco say getting bit was always in the back of his mind.
Never did I think it happened to me, but yeah, when I got bit, it was like, wow.
But even with the injuries, he's lucky, expected to make a full recovery, able to now make light of a scary situation.
My friends are a little shooken up with getting back into the water and even being on the water. So if I get back with them, it's almost going to be like, okay, like, all right, it's fine. Like, who's going to get bit by a shark twice, right? So it's almost like get back as soon as possible and just enjoy like we used to, like before I got bit.
And with the Memorial Day weekend ahead of us, more people are expected out on the water. This also comes as we all mark National Safe Boating Week. That's why officials in Charlotte County say some of the best steps you can take include, of course, wearing a life jacket. To just do it. They say people should make sure that all the safety equipment is in proper working order. Watch out for sandbars and also watch for all channel markers for proper speeds.
70% of operators involved in fatalities out here on our waters didn't have any formal boater training. And more than 64% of the operators with no formal boater safety training were over the age of 35.
And also this recommendation to take a boater safety course before heading out to the waters. We're bringing Fox 4 certified meteorologist Katie Walls. We'll also take a look outside to the Bayfront Inn in Naples. Now this looks east. It is clear here right now. But when we take a look at this, to the skies, we can feel it's electric.
Oh, it is. She is really talking here. But what's crazy, that thunderstorm that we can see illuminating the night sky from Collier County, that is 100 miles away, all the way in Broward County, currently affecting our friends in Fort Lauderdale. A strong cell that continues to move eastward there. So, of course, we continue to monitor that closely. However, at least for us here in Southwest Florida on this coastline, conditions are nice and quiet, and we don't have any thunderstorms to track for you here. Now, temperatures, they are on the sticky side. We're at 79 degrees. Dew point, the measure of moisture in the air right now at 70. So even at this hour, we do still have a heat index several degrees hotter. It's feeling more like 82. And of course, that heat index has been a concern of mine here for the last couple of days. And once again, heading into tomorrow, it's going to be feeling more like the upper 90s. So here's a closer look right now. You can see that vigorous thunderstorm right now, very strong, producing that frequent lightning as we just saw right over Fort Lauderdale. But over here in Southwest Florida, things are nice and quiet. Up toward Arcadia, though, we are watching this thunderstorm just off toward your west. So really for the northwestern and western side of DeSoto County, that is the only activity that we currently have anywhere close to us. As we look at those rainfall totals, it has been a drier than average May. Punta Gorda only receiving 1,800th in the rain gauge since May 1st. Naples, technically nothing in the rain gauge has registered just yet. So Naples, we are in deficit now by 7 1/4 inches going back to January 1st. Fort Myers, we're down by around 5 1/4 inches. Meanwhile, notice this, we've only had all of less than 1/10 of an inch in the rain gauge at Fort Myers Page Field. So bottom line, we are still in that moderate to severe drought here across Southwest Florida, but we are gradually kicking more into an active weather pattern. So each and every afternoon, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, just make sure you stay vigilant and you do stay weather aware. It'll be like clockwork from 2 o'clock onward. Showers and storms firing up across Southwest Florida. And then over the weekend, we'll see a little bit of a break. Fewer storms are expected for your Memorial Day weekend. So fewer storms in the mix will back down those rain chances on your Saturday and especially Sunday heading into Monday. But for tomorrow, we'll kick off the day with a partly cloudy sky, some areas of haze and fog. Otherwise, for your afternoon, there we go, right here around 2 to 3 p.m. That's when those showers and storms will begin to initialize. Main threats, just like today's, heavy downpours and frequent lightning along with those gusty winds in the stronger storms that develop right here around 8 o'clock. Not just inland, but even right here closer toward the coast, we could have some wet weather as well. And even though it might not be timely as we continue with those repairs from the hurricane, we do need that rain. For tonight, partly cloudy, patchy fog as clouds gradually thin out a bit. 91 degrees for tomorrow afternoon, but feeling more like 98 because of that heat. So scattered storms in the mix for the next several days. Isolated Saturday, mostly sunny, mainly dry, heading into your Sunday and Memorial Day.
Still to come on Fox 4 News at 11, Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to formally announce a run for the White House tomorrow. We'll explain how and the method he's planning to do this after all of these trips of late to Iowa and New Hampshire. Plus, at Fort Myers Beach Baptist Church is set to build back after helping so many other people with their rebuilding. A look at some of the details made with developers, but this could also really change the property that it sits on. Also, some parents are still questioning a proposed policy for Lee County schools. And this would allow school workers to search a student's phone without a warrant, only on suspicion. Why the district says it has every right to do so. Now let's take a look at our tower cam overlooking Pine Island Road in Cape Coral. And this is looking southeast towards Broward County. So for the next few seconds, you will get free environmental entertainment. It is clear here. But over in the Atlantic side, they are facing lots of the storms, lots of lightning pushing through, all cloud to cloud. As Fox 4 certified meteorologist Katie Walls will get us all set for the days to come. Stay with Fox 4.